Greetings again, my friends, and happy Friday, and welcome back to Drak Vlogs, where I'm talking about even more Luke Cage. So I've been able to make my way through 2 more episodes, and that's just going to be the pace that we're going to go from here on until the season is over. And holy crap, this series continues to elevate. The series continues to innovate. This series continues to get me invested. So I know a lot of people don't really like the spoiler stuff, so I'm going to try and keep that as light as I can. So I'm going to warn you guys in advance. If you don't want to be spoiled, now's the time to click off the video. But I'm going to go over the plot of each episode as easily as I can without going too much into the plot bits. So the episode 6 basically was dealing with the conflict, or the now conflict, between Cottonmouth and Detective Scarf. Mainly because Scarf was his man. Scarf was being paid under the table by Cottonmouth. And the best way that I know how to describe it is Scarf knew what he had, and he knew what it meant to Cottonmouth, and so he decided to hold out for more money, which was, he basically had the entire or the weapons cache from Hammer Industries. I forgot to mention that a couple of episodes. Yeah, the weapons are made by Hammer Industries, Justin Hammer from Iron Man 2. So at that point, he's got quite a big pendulum hanging over Cottonmouth's head. And they finally go to meet, and he basically holds out for more money. He sits there and goes, I should probably be getting like $100,000 more for this, or straight up $100,000 for this, because I'm basically, I mean, you're not in good shape right now. Luke Cage is ruining your empire, and I'm the only one saving you, so I should be getting bigger pay. And Cottonmouth's response was obviously, screw that, and it ended up in a firefight with Scarf taking some bullets. And then the conflict basically escalates to a point, and the best part is like both of these episodes actually kind of deal with this, where Cottonmouth's empire, as well as Mariah, or the politician's empire, kind of start falling apart. Originally it was just Cottonmouth, because Luke Cage was going after him, but Mariah had enough steps away from it that it wouldn't affect her, and we start to see that slowly not become the case. In fact, we even have later, when they do like a press interview for the project that Mariah is working on to save Harlem, the reporter who's doing like this fluff interview, like this Good Morning America interview, actually digs out an old picture of her, Cottonmouth, and I believe it's her mother and his kind of adopted mother, Mama Mabel, who is the original like mob boss in this family. So she was, and they later on show like she was a noble mob boss, I guess, but you know, mob boss is mob boss. So they actually show this picture. Mariah doesn't appreciate it, and it immediately just kicks them out, because this reporter basically asks the right questions. Is the money legit, or is it coming from Cottonmouth? Is this movement legit, or is this just another front for Cottonmouth? And so she forces him out. As far as development for Luke Cage, there really wasn't any for episode 6, at least that I'm... Actually, no, there was. Because we then have Claire, who people may have known from both... I'm trying to think, was she in Daredevil Season 2? She might not have been. She was in Daredevil Season 1, and she was also in Jessica Jones. And so they even kind of hint at her in the previous episode, where she goes to her mother's restaurant to kind of figure things out after she's been... This is kind of continuing the story from Jessica Jones, where she's been fired from the hospital that she was working at, and now she's trying to figure out what she's going to do. And Claire actually does have like a more meaningful existence in the Marvel Universe, and I have a feeling that the series is going to get into it. So at that point, she's spending a lot of time there, and it just so happens through fate that Luke and his new business associate, the accountant who's helping run Pops at this point, they're both at the restaurant that her mother works. Or their mother owns. And so she actually does a catch up with Luke, and because at that point they hadn't done a whole lot of character development between the two of them. I mean, she saved his life, and they never really had him thank her for it. So we had this moment, but we also had a moment where, kind of like with Daredevil, I don't want to say with Jessica because she didn't really have that much access to her, but she kind of tries to be like the conscience there. For Matt Murdock, that's a weird thing to say, but for Luke Cage, it works, where she's trying to be the conscience and saying, you can be a hero. And here's the thing. Luke's assertion is he's not a hero. And I kind of like that concept of him, is that he's always asserted, because the way that I've always known Luke Cage is he's a hero for hire. He's a merc. And that's always worked. And I like the fact that instead of saying, well, I'm just a hero for hire, they're just like, I'm just a man. I don't want to be viewed as a superhuman or a big green guy or a guy with a hammer. I just want to be a guy. And I don't like the fact that this was forced upon me. I like that angle. I like what they're doing with it. And having Claire kind of come in and be kind of the heroic conscience works for me. It works for me in a really weird way. And I like the fact that, when he's sitting there debating, should I run? Should I do this? Should I do that? He can bounce that off of her, and she's kind of we're all living vicariously through her, because we all want Luke to do it. We all want Luke to stand up. And so I do like that. Eventually, that actually ends up with Scarf going to Pops. And, again, Claire has to do her job. So she gets the bullets out of him. But at the same time, he also explains to Luke that he has enough evidence to put away Cottonmouth. He's been taking notes. He knows that half of the department is in Cottonmouth's pocket. And he's been taking meticulous notes. He has evidence. So obviously then it becomes, but the best part about that also is that while this is going on, Detective Knight is actually being partnered by Detective Perez, which got introduced an episode earlier for Internal Affairs. And it turns out he's in Cottonmouth's pocket too. And so they have this whole kind of struggle of watching Scarf's place to see if anything happens, and he doesn't want to do that because he's been tasked by Cottonmouth to go find Scarf. And he's got Cottonmouth breathing down his throat more than he does the department. So we have that nice little, or that nice conflict that's going on between them, and eventually ends up in a gunfight in the car, which was really cool and a really suspenseful moment to be able to watch. Especially watch it unfold, and as I'm talking before the gun even gets pulled out, it's really good. It's one of those moments that I really can't think of like an example off the top of my head that a mainstream network series hasn't done better, and it's great. I love it. Ultimately, Luke finds the evidence, then uses it. So Scarf, unfortunately, I think, he dies. He actually dies in Detective Knight's arms. So now you have that new point of conflict with Detective Knight because Luke was with him. And then on top of that, you got to see the epic moment where Cottonmouth gets arrested. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is resolution. This is the end of an arc because it's only 6 episodes in. What on earth could happen here? Well, then episode 7 comes in. And he gets acquitted, or he basically gets to walk out of the department. He's gotten a nice little snivelly lawyer, and he's been able to get out of his charges. Okay, and it's especially since now they know that Scarf is dirty, now the evidence is tainted, so they don't know if they can necessarily use it. Which was actually something that I was thinking of when I was going through. I'm like, but you're dirty. Why would they trust your evidence? But Luke was doing the right thing, so I'm not going to give them too much crap about that. But he gets out. Then we find out that basically he calls in Luke to his office now that he's been able to do that. He's got a bit of a hot head now. He thinks he can get away with anything, and now he's got the ultimate street cred because he just got away with murder, he got away with drug running, he got away with gun running, and he walks away scot-free. He's the next kingpin as far as he's concerned. And he brings in Luke, and then we find out that through shades, we're guessing through shades, Cottonmouth now knows the history of Carl Lucas. And therefore kind of holds an ultimatum over his head. You work for me, or I'm going to tell the world who you are. I'm going to tell them you went to prison. You're going to go right back to that prison. We're under the assumption maybe he'll go back to get experimented on. We don't know that. But they basically go, you're going to go back to prison unless you work for me. And now we have this internal conflict with Luke Cage because he doesn't want to get found. And now he is. So this is like the prime time for Luke to run and to find a new identity, find a new town, and all that stuff. And they actually kind of set that up. And again, this is where Claire comes into play really, really well, is that she does a really convincing argument of why he shouldn't leave. If he leaves, then nothing changes here and things will get worse. And it really works throughout the episode. And I love the fact that now Claire is starting to kind of earn Luke's trust over it. And he even explains to her, like, if people find out about Carl Lucas, we're done here. I'm not going to look noble to anybody. And I actually wouldn't agree, because I kind of agree with Claire's argument that it's Harlem. Everybody at least one spent time in prison at one given moment. At least that's the argument that she's making, is like everybody's brother, everybody's uncle, everybody's cousin, they've all either done time or are doing time in prison. It's not like anybody's going to understand. You're going to look like you're just going to be a man to them. And, well, I can already say that's not true, because he's going to look like a superhero. You know, they've done a really good job in Daredevil and Jessica Jones and in Luke Cage of establishing that the world doesn't know what to think of the Avengers just yet. And I have a feeling this is also happening in time with all of the things that are happening in the movies. You know, we have the Sokovia Accords going on. We have Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. actively going on, so we know S.H.I.E.L.D.'s out there. And so at that point, it's not necessarily true, but we all want to have that noble ideal that Luke can rise above it and he can be a good guy. In the meantime, though, while Cottonmouth seems to be thriving and got a bit of an ego, Mariah's not in a good state. She's basically watching everything she's fought for in Harlem as a politician crumble right before her. And in the meantime, we actually have these wonderful little memory vignettes, although gruesome, where we get to meet Mama Mabel. And we get to see the situation that they were dealing with while growing up. We actually learn that the fascination that Cottonmouth has with playing the piano is because he's an accomplished musical protege, musical student that never got to explore that talent because Mama Mabel had different plans. We also got to learn that Mariah was kind of the doted on, the silver spoon child, and thus was, you know, kind of groomed to be a lawyer. And we also see kind of the resentment for that. So we get to see this nice background come together to show not just because we've been kind of getting that they see each other's family, they love each other, but they also resent each other. And we start to see why. And it actually all culminates into a really great climax for them where Cottonmouth's got a bit of an ego going on right now, and Mariah doesn't. So she goes to confront him and try to show who's boss. He looks her in the eye and goes, "You're not the boss anymore. And I didn't like any of these decisions that were going down. I didn't like the fact that you were the protege, that you got sent off to boarding school. I wanted to be the one that got sent off to boarding school." We get to see that resentment get pulled off so well, enough to the point where Mariah snaps and kills Cottonmouth. So, even better, like earlier on, we actually even had Shades kind of light that fire and eventually side with Mariah on the matter. Like, especially since Shades isn't too happy that Cottonmouth met with Luke, because Diamondback has plans for him. And we don't know what those are, but that's obviously foreshadowing. And it's also, this episode did a really good job of kind of establishing true hero, true villain. Because in essence, like, I never had a problem with Cottonmouth. I think his character was being developed really, really well. But after this turn of events, it makes me really interested to see what Mariah's going to do on the matter, because she's a politician. So she can get on the hate wagon, or she can take over Cottonmouth's empire and become her mother's daughter. She can become the next Mama Mabel. So there's a lot to look forward to in these next episodes, and I love the buildup that's happening so far. I know I went into a lot of spoiler territory, but you know, it's kind of hard not to talk about these moments and not give them any kind of credibility. But I think that's going to go ahead and do it for my opinion on these two episodes. I love where this is going. It's continuing to build itself up, just like Daredevil did. And actually, I would dare say there were a couple of episodes in Jessica Jones, just because at points it was batshit crazy, where we had that kind of lowering down and being able to absorb everything that we were dealing with. Luke Cage is still in that build-up stage, and I'm really liking what they're doing with it. And I'm looking forward to how the series is now going to get shaped now that Cottonmouth's out of the picture and Mariah may be taking over his empire. So we'll see what happens there, but I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this vlog. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you guys so much for continuing to contribute and like and subscribe and all the things you do for my content. And of course, I will see you guys next time for the next video.